Hello and welcome to what should be the last of the total card reveals for the entire expansion, and kicking us straight off in this last video is Hastewing Dragonute, a 4-drop 3/3, looks to be legendary card for Dragoncraft, and it is a Storm Invocation. Whenever you play a card that originally cost at least 7 play points, for the 4th time or later, put a Hastewing Dragonute from your deck into play. Fanfare: if Overflow is not active for you, remove all effects on this follower except changes to its attack or defense. Okay, so the Fanfare is actually fairly interesting. If Overflow is not active for you, remove all effects on this follower except changes to its attack and defense. So that does mean that you do lose the Storm effect if you just play this if Overflow is not active. If it is active, of course, you still get the Storm, which is actually fairly decent for a 4-drop. So that's actually a pretty acceptable line of play when it comes to playing this on turn 7 or later. The Invocation is where this card really shines. Getting a free 4-drop 3/3 Storm is actually going to be pretty great, considering Dragon does tend to ramp and also flood the board. And if you're potentially playing something like the Prince of Darkness and throwing in some high cost cards, it definitely gives you a decent chance, as it doesn't specify they have to be Dragon cards to trigger the Invocation. It's only got to be the 7 play point cards, so it's very possible to use those to your full advantage, and I think this is one of the more interesting legendaries. Then we have a Vile Violet Dragon, a 5-drop of 4/4 silver for Dragoncraft. Whenever this follower takes damage, if this follower is not destroyed, draw 2 cards. So again, not bad. This one's actually going to be a fairly decent draw engine as far as it goes. It's a pity that it would cost an Evo to get this effect to trigger 100%, but you can also trigger it with low cost cards that ping damage. So I can definitely see you taking full advantage of this card to get as many draws as possible using the ping effects from the last expansion, which could be quite viable as a decent draw option. Then we have a Carbuncle Immortal Jewel, a 4-drop 2/2 legendary for Forestcraft. Accelerate 2, draw a card, put a Carbuncle Sparkle into your hand. And then we just have a basic Fanfare on it when it's played normally. Put 4 Carbuncle Sparks into your hand. Evolve, restore 2 defense to your leader, recover 2 play points. So honestly, I like the Evolve on this more than probably anything else. Playing this on turn 4 is definitely not the best way to play it, but it's practically a free evolve. You play this on turn 4, you get a 4/4 and you've got a free heal and some play and extra evolution points. Play this turn 5 if you're going second, potentially recovering 2 evolution points, which would be much more value, but not bad. And then of course the Carbuncle Spark is a 1-drop spell. Restore 1 defense to your leader, recover 1 evolution point, draw a card. So it just basically will mean that Forest will never run out of evolution points, or at least will find it very hard to, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I still think this card is a pretty mediocre as far as things go, unless a deck is completely crafted around this card and we end up in a much slower meta. Then I think this card could be completely viable and quite overpowered. Until that happens, or until we see something like that, I don't know if I'm completely comfortable with saying this card is really powerful. It's kind of in that average to above average category. Probably I'd put it in above average for now as far as legendaries go, and it's definitely got one of the more interesting mechanics for Forest to have. Then we have Wild Flame Dragon, another Dragoncraft card, 8-drop 6/8 gold. Fanfare: destroy all damaged enemy followers. So I don't mind this one too much. It's just a mass clear, destroying all enemy followers that are damaged. Not too difficult to do, and I think it's not too bad considering its stat line. So as far as golds go, I actually quite like this one. Then we have Ward of Unkilling, a 3-drop bronze amulet for Forestcraft. It is a countdown 1. Fanfare: draw 2 cards. Until this amulet leaves play, your leader cannot receive more than 5 damage at a time. So this one just stops any kind of big damage turns like the Mysteria plays that could potentially kill you in one shot. So they're definitely adding in a few more options to block out those OTKs, and I actually don't mind that. Considering I really enjoy playing Mysteria Rune, I don't mind other decks having counters. It just means I have to play a little bit better to really get around them, which is usually going to be fine. And Fanfare: draw 2 cards is really good for an amulet like this, so Forest really is not losing out if they were running this card. Then we have Lania, Sister of Judgment, a 6-drop 4/5 Havencraft legendary. Fanfare: give +1/+2 to all other allied weakest allied followers in play. So that's okay. So give +1/+2 to all the other weakest allied followers in play. So assuming you have one that is a weak follower, it'll only boost that, I think. And then if it's if you have multiple, say you have a bunch of 1/1s, they would all get this buff. That's how I'm interpreting the card, and it's a similar problem with the destroy all the strongest enemy followers in play. So if there's only one follower that is the strongest, it'll only destroy that. Otherwise, it's quite interesting. So yeah, definitely an interesting way to word that card. I think the translation from Japanese was much clearer on how this functions, and when I looked at that, it's basically, yeah, if you've got one follower on board that is the weakest, it'll only buff that card, but if you have multiple, it'll buff them all. Similar with the destroying the strongest, or destroying multiple if they are all equal. Then we have Viola, Duchess of Doles, a 3-drop, a 3/3 bronze card for Portalcraft. Whenever an allied puppet comes into play, give it +0/+2. Evolve, put a puppet into your hand. Whenever an allied puppet comes into play, give it +0/+2. So gaining +2 in the health department isn't a massive advantage to puppets unless you really want to stick them to the board, but considering they instantly get banished, or destroyed in the next turn, it kind of doesn't serve much of a purpose. Maybe in the future we'll be able to take better advantage of something like this, but right now I just don't think this is that good of a card. For a bronze card even, it's pretty weak. Then we have Forgotten Sanctuary, a 5-drop bronze amulet, countdown 3, fanfare and last word, summon a Barong. Either way, this card's not bad. A Barong is actually a 6-drop, which is not bad, as its stats are actually reasonable. I believe they're either a 4/5 or something along those lines. They're actually not too bad considering. So being able to get 2 of them out of one card, even at countdown 3 for Havencraft, potentially could be pretty scary. We're really interested in some more amulet-based cards, and this one is definitely something I'm interested in trying out, even if it is as more of a meme. Then we have a Zealot of Repose, a 4-drop, a 0/1 bronze card for Havencraft. At the end of your turn, if this follower didn't attack this turn, destroy all enemy followers with 2 defense or less. So this one I'm quite a big fan of. It pretty much can wipe boards. Play it on turn 4. Wipe out pretty much everything that was set up by that point. There are not many cards that range in the 1 to 3 drop range that you can't have it 2 defense by this turn, especially with a quick evo on this. Could have a lot of potential as a nice early board clear, so nice to see Haven getting even more board clear options, as it does tend to be the more control orientated deck. Then we have a Dance of Usurpation. It's a 5-drop spell for Swordcraft. Deal 2 damage to all enemy followers. Put 2 of the following cards into your hand, and then it's just listing all the loot cards. I actually don't mind this one too much. Again, it's a mass board clear, similar to the previous Haven card, but obviously in a spell and as a 5-drop for Sword isn't bad for a complete board clear, or a reasonable board clear. It's probably not going to wipe out everything, but it's going to take most things with it. Plus, getting the loot cards is always a good advantage. Then we have Power Forge, a 2-drop gold Dragoncraft card. Deal X damage to an enemy follower. X equals the attack of the strongest allied follower in play. Enhance 7. Before dealing damage, summon a dragon. So the Enhance 7 is pretty average, considering the fact that this card deals X damage, X equals the attack of the strongest allied follower in play. So since this does summon a dragon beforehand, minimum you're going to get 5 out of this card if you're using the Enhanced 7. If you're not using the Enhanced 7, you've got still a pretty decent 2-drop card that can remove something. You could probably go pretty well with a few cards, I think, potentially. I'm trying to think on some decent attack power cards, and the dragon does have a few, so I think this is decent. You're going to get between 2 to 4 damage, I think, out of this on average, which is fairly good. Playing it on turn 4 even, after you've evoed a 2-drop to a 4 attack follower, you could pretty easily get that out, so not bad. And as I mentioned, with Enhanced 7, you're paying 5 for the dragon, which is a normal cost for a dragon, and then getting this on top of it, so it does equal 7 pretty reasonably. Then we have a Sonata of Silence, a 1-drop gold spell for Shadowcraft. Draw a card, remove all effects from an allied follower except changes to its attack or defense. Enhance 4, remove all effects from all followers except changes to their attack and defense. So the fact that this is literally a mass dispel for Enhance 4 is pretty crazy. In the Shadow Mirror match, this could be the difference between your opponent absolutely crippling you or you winning the game, as it's just that insane in the kind of mirror. Against other decks though, this one isn't quite as nice. While some crafts definitely have more follower effects, most people tend to favor Fanfare over Last Word, so you're definitely going to see a lot more of this card not being that great in any other matchup outside of the mirror. So if we have a massive shadow meta and you want to counter shadow, this is looking to be the way to do it. You go shadow on shadow to counter it, so definitely not overall bad. removing it just for a draw card is fairly equal. I mean, a 1-drop draw card is still fairly good, even if it means activating it on a card that has no effect to begin with. So, I don't mind this too much at all. Then we have Blazing Lion Admiral, a 7-drop 4/5 legendary commander for Swordcraft. It is a rush, and it has Evocation. At the start of your turn, if 15 or more allied followers have been destroyed during this match, put this card from your deck into play. Whenever this follower attacks, give all other allied followers +1/+1. So, just straight up, as is, as a 7-drop 4/5, stats are pretty weak, of course, which to be kind of expected based on just the rush and the buffing of all other allied followers in general. It's definitely going to be based around more of a board flood deck, which I don't mind. We're seeing Otahime come in the, I think, is it Otahime? Yeah, the new Otahime, sorry, so that won't be much good to it. I'm trying to think on actually really good ways you could utilize this card. It's a good because it's a 7-drop, which Sword needs. Sword needed a good 7-drop, so it's definitely fitting that role. But the Invocation, not the super easiest thing to trigger, but at the same time, Sword does have a lot of cards that are kind of summoned off, like tokens and stuff, and potentially with one of the decks I was messing with that summons a bunch of, I think, Heavy Knights, this could be quite solid, or Steelclad Knights. Either way, could be really interesting to build a whole deck that really takes full advantage of Lion Admiral. Then we have Ilios Loyal Dragoon, an 8-drop 4/7 for Dragoncraft silver card, Storm. At the start of your opponent's turn, if this follower has been damaged, restore 2 defense to this follower and gain ward. I actually quite like this card as an 8-drop 4/7. It's pretty reasonable to have Storm. It's going to get a decent amount of damage out of it, and considering it is an 8-drop, it does trigger the Invocation on the new Legendary. So at the start of your opponent's turn, if this follower has been damaged, isn't too difficult. Restore 2 defense to this follower and gain ward, so you can both set it up as a pretty decent ward drop, or you can just use it straight up as an attack drop, so it's got that versatility to it, which I like. And again, since Dragon does ramp, it should be easy to get this out well for your opponent's turn 8, so it's actually not that expensive in consideration. So if this was in any other craft, it probably wouldn't see much play outside of maybe Sword, just because an 8-drop 4/7 Storm is fairly high cost for a Storm, but Dragon can really take advantage of ramping to get this card out and take full advantage of its potential damage. Then we have Fortune's Font, a font? That definitely says font, but I think it should be fountain. Either way, a 4-drop Amulet, neutral card, count down 3 at the end of your turn, draw a card. Also, like they are using the Asunia art, which is pretty alright, so nice to see that. But as far as this goes, I don't think it's that bad. It's a pretty decent draw card. It's probably taking the place of Pure Hearted Singer, where Pure Hearted Singer was definitely a little bit better, but this isn't necessarily the worst. Then we have a Verdict Discovery, so a 3-drop spell for Runecraft. Summon a Clay Golem, give +1 to all allied Clay Golems, Earthright, put a Verdict Ritual into your hand. It's actually pretty decent for a spell as far as spells go, and I like, again, seeing more support for Earthright and Clay Golem sort of decks, so this is overall not a bad card. I think it's fairly decent for a 3-drop silver, and could definitely see some play in some Earthright decks. Then we have a Devil Raider, a 2-drop 1/3 bronze card for Bloodcraft, still my by far favorite stat line, and it's also a ward, making it even better. The fanfare is enhanced 7, gain +4/+4, so making it, what, a 5-drop, yeah, 5/7? So a 7-drop 5/7. Or potentially gaining another +1/+1 and making it a 6/8 if Vengeance is active. So a good way to really shut down your opponent and go for a more stall, but also being a really good pressure in the early game while also blocking damage. I think this card has the right amount of versatility to make it viable in potential blood decks, even more aggressive ones, as the 1/3 stat line is fairly decent. Will it be overshadowed by Darkfeast Bat? Still, most likely, but I think in the future, especially with the coming rotation of a few sets, this card could definitely see play in, say, 3 to 6 months, where we're going to go into a whole new meta and things could be nuts. Even in the current meta, this card would still be quite viable. It's just a matter of, would you want to go more defensively with your Bloodcraft deck? Then we have Manifestation of Repose, a 4-drop silver Havencraft spell. Randomly put 3 different cards that cost 2 play points or less from your deck into your hand. This one, I don't mind either. It's okay. It does have to skip a turn, but to put 3 different cards that cost 2 play points is pretty much a guaranteed tutor at this point. You could put in a few different cards and guarantee the fact that you're going to pull them. You could even put triplicates of 3 2-drops, so that's 9 cards out of your 40 card deck, and guarantee that you're going to pull one of each, which is really quite nice. But again, it will take up a turn 4 slot or later in the game. So maybe if you are going for a more control-orientated deck, you could probably pull this off along with something else. But as this stands right now, it's definitely okay. And since it is 2 play points or less, of course, 1-drops and 0s would be affected. But the only 1-drops I can think of are draw cards anyway, so definitely not a bad option. I think this could slot in a more control-orientated Haven deck. Then we have Kiss of Lust, a 1-drop silver spell for Bloodcraft, deal 2 damage to an enemy follower, restore 1 defense to both leaders. So they definitely seem to be taking a little more of a healing kind of mechanic for spells, which is interesting. But dealing 2 damage to an enemy follower, completely okay with that. That seems like it should be fairly decent, especially as a 1-drop spell. So I like that a lot. And restoring 1 defense actually isn't that bad. I think dealing 1 damage would have been much better. If it was deal 1 damage to yourself and heal 1 defense on your opponent even, would have been absolutely nuts as a 1-drop spell. But as far as it stands right now, I don't mind this card at all, and I would still consider running it in Bloodcraft decks. Even in current Dark Feast lists, I'd try to make room for a card like this. Then we have War Dog, a 3-drop 3/3 bronze card, Swordcraft Officer, Fanfare Enhanced 6, deal 3 damage to the enemy leader. Pretty okay. I mean, dealing 3 damage as a 6-drop enhance is okay. Again, not the most crazy, but it is a bronze, so I'll give it a free pass, and it is the last card that we're going to look at. I was considering doing an overall, looking at every single card that's been released once the website updates. Of course, with Christmas and stuff coming up, I'm probably not going to get a chance to do that before the expansion launches, and I've currently made videos right up until the expansion launches, so this is actually the last video I am making before the expansion. There'll still be daily content, they're just already on schedule and ready to go for you guys, so hopefully you guys can enjoy it. If you are interested, I will put all of these videos into a playlist so you can check out all the cards if you haven't watched any or you've missed some. It would definitely be worth checking that out if you haven't, or again, check out the official website as they will have everything go up very, very soon, even allowing for theory crafting using the deck builder, which I'll probably do personally. If you are interested in seeing some decks I might theory craft, I may post them on my Twitter if I find some time, so you can check them out there. Otherwise, until next time guys, hit the like button, subscribe for more content, see ya.